Welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Richard Miller, and my co-host is convinced that the same magic that turns average to poor championship players into world beaters a league below applies to podcasters as well. Planning to become big league in a little league, he has announced a suite of new shows. My Dad Has Written a Porno, based in Cheltenham. WTF, short for We Talk Fleetwood. And the Luke Gledall Show, exclusive to Spotify, where he insists on watching YouTube clips, despite the fact it's an audio medium, and tries to sell you vitamin pills. Can we keep his feet on the ground for one more episode? Dr. Luke Gledall, how are you doing today, Luke?
I'm good, and no, you cannot keep my feet on the ground.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear it. How's the week been? You know, we've had this kind of long period of feeling like we were probably down, but it not happening. Now we've had a week to come to terms with the reality of it. Has it? It
feels weird. I mean, it feels weird because we're getting to. I'm not sure. Rich, me and you will talk. We'll talk offline about what we're doing for the foreseeable future. Period that kind of lies end of season, leading into the next season, the 21-2022 season, Sheffield Wednesday in League One.
The interregnum,
getting a slice of the action.
Slice of the action.
Slice of the action in it, blood. So we'll be doing that. But in the meantime, it's kind of weird. So it's nice to have a strange, and it's weird because I think people know. I think people are very much like us, Rich. They're very passionate about Sheffield Wednesday Football Club. But it's just nice to have a break. It's nice to just not think about it.
Well, you get little sort of glimpses of it mid-season when it's an international break, and I think if you're in the middle of a winning run, the international break feels like it takes forever because you just want to get to the next game. The flip side of that, when you're on a losing, you've just got tanked, or you're on a losing run, or you've had a whole season where basically you've just lost every week, you do sort of welcome the break because it's a break from the tedium of having to muster up some hope and some expectation every week about this football club, which constantly lets us down. So, yeah, I think it's been nice not to think about it quite so much for a week. It's got to be said. But we are going to think and talk an awful lot about Sheffield Wednesday this show. It's what we do. But this serves as our season review. We're going to take a look through the season that's just been and pick out best and worst moments and give every member of the squad that's played more than a minute of football a grade. We're in a bizarre and unique position to be able to give managers grades because we had 4 different managers and each of them did about a quarter of the season, so we can play them off against each other and see how we feel they did. And we'll also look back at our pre-season predictions that we made and judge ourselves on how well we did at predicting the future. So lots to get into. I think it's going to be interesting and fun. But first things first, we've got to deal with
breaking hoo-hoos.
And the first bit of news is we're under an embargo again, which is great fun. This has been rumoured. There's rumours of several teams, I think up to 10, being in a similar position. But due to, once again, poor management of the club, poor admin, we're in a position where if the transfer window were to open right now, we wouldn't be able to make any use of it, or we'd be very limited in our use of it. How worried are you about the fact that we're in an embargo ahead of a pretty much a complete rebrand or restart of the team, of the squad, Luke?
It's a good question. How worried am I? I don't really have any worry about that right now.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's so much like I'm just at a level of complete content apathy right now. So there's really nothing in my bucket. I don't know if that's an expression, but I'm going to use that right now as an expression.
And you're not worried about the fact that there's nothing in the bucket because there was a big hole in the bottom of the bucket. You're just going, well, there's nothing in there, so what can I do?
I'm going to flip it over and sit in it like an English Canadian or woolly. That's what I'm going to do. Going to go hang out with Soapy Suter, Week,
and it would be Elsa, as they have in Leeds.
Yes, or Bielsa. I don't know, because I genuine. Okay, let me kind of say it from the position of pure kind of apathy right now. Let me just kind of get this out there, and I'll move on and kind of take a very serious look at it. I'm just genuinely at the point of just thinking, like, I don't know, like this is. It kind of feels like I'm looking over the fence at. It feels like I'm looking over the fence at a neighbour's thing, because it's everything that Mr. Chancery has done for Sheffield Wednesday Football Club to just be like, this is your mess. You've got to sort it out, man.
Brand Chancery is just stumbling from one disaster to the next.
Pretty much. But I'm not surprised. Like, I mean, you told me this, and I kept up a little bit with some of the Wednesday news, but I'm kind of just getting to the point of just being like, I'm happy to just not look at this for a while, So it's like I haven't been diligently following some of the rumor mill firing up with who we're looking at from Leagues 1 and 2, which seems to be what's kind of happening. I think we can probably bench all that stuff to the side. We've got a lot of stuff to get into today. So
yeah, that's fair enough.
I don't want to look at that. I mean, but it's just we've constantly been in a cycle of being in embargoes. Like it feels like a board game. It feels like a board game which is called Embargo. And it's like, you pick up a chance card, much kind of very loosely modeling Monopoly. And it's like, you breathed, take a transfer embargo.
Take a transfer embargo.
Rick
Parry doesn't like your face.
Rick Parry heard you made an underpar lasagna. Take a transfer embargo. It just feels constantly like that. So it's nothing new.
It's just reminded me of the board game in League of Gentlemen with the incomprehensible rules. Is it a board game or a card game? Go, Johnny, go, 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 go. We're playing embargo. Sit down. Oh, you sat down too slowly. You're in an embargo.
But I don't know. I don't know what's going to satisfy getting out of the embargo. Like, I don't know whether it's purely... It just seems to be something they just throw out willy-nilly.
Yeah. I was working on a little thing which may make this week's episode, and if it's not on either end of this week's episode, it'll probably be on next week's. But I was looking back at Jordan Rhodes' time with Sheffield Wednesday as a bit of a sneak preview, and I forgot that he signed on loan because we kind of messed up the paperwork of, and he had to sign on loan temporarily because that was easier to get over the line given the scant amount of time we'd given ourselves to make the biggest transfer in the history of our football club. Just symptomatic of this bizarre situation. But let's as you say, let's move along. So the
No, I'm just going to say I don't really know. I don't know who's incompetent more, us or the EFL. That's been a constant theme of I think my mentality about kind of looking what's going on. I don't know what it takes to get out of an embargo. So how serious is it that we're in an embargo? It feels like 10 clubs are in an embargo.
Yeah.
But everyone's upset that clubs are losing money in a pandemic.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. What do you want teams to do? What do you want football to be? It's already a vast hole to chuck money in. Now it's an even bigger, vaster hole because you're basically saying that football should still continue without fans.
Yeah, and it's sort of this one's supposed to be about delay of getting books in or publishing books and things like that. And we know that the other thing that we know is that the EFL used some of the extra time that they were given by HMRC. Like they didn't get their books in on time this year either. So they might have to embargo themselves.
I hope so. I hope Rick Parry embargoes himself from buying a new pair of sandals.
I was gonna go down that route as well. I was gonna say he can't get rid of his Birkenstocks. He needs to Needs to make use of them for another season because he can't move them on.
Needs to keep his dirty, sweaty Birkenstocks. And imagine a time when he was in status quo. In fact, it's status quo for you, Rick Parry. You and your Birkenstocks.
Here we are. Here we are. Here we go.
We have been in contact with Clarks.com and we've deleted your username and banned you from any further Birkenstocks.
No more hush puppies for you. Okay, are you sufficiently pleased with the embargo talk now, Luke? Sorry, I'm sorry to step on your toes.
But also, I mean, like, we've also... But then there's like, you have an embargo, but then you can still sign players because you don't have many... We're not going to have many professional football players at the club next season.
No.
We have like, what, 13 or something like this?
There's not many left, it's got to be said.
There's not many left. So, I mean, we're going to have to sign players. So it's like... And then you get like a limitation of who you can sign and how much money you can do that for. So you can still make some... I don't know. I'm not getting too
I think
upset.
it means everything has to be run by there's different embargoes, because I think there's partial embargoes where you're still allowed to do certain things. There's full embargoes where just, there's no movement in or out.
Right.
But I think even at the lightest touch level, you're in a position where you're sort of beholden. The EFL has to very closely sign everything off, and
Right.
I think you kind of have, it almost needs to be zero sum. So like if you're moving somebody in, you have to show that you're saving the equivalent value somewhere else. So
there's a small juice box on Bongo. There's the family size on Bongo. Yeah, similar, same thing, right?
Exactly the same thing.
Exactly the same thing.
And it's about as good as that juice box song by Robbie Williams.
Is it as good as Juice Box by The Strokes?
No, it couldn't hope to be. It couldn't possibly hope to be.
Well, there we go. I understand it clearly now. Let's carry on.
The main thing about embargoes that I know is it doesn't taste as good since they took all of the delicious E-numbers and bad things out of it. That is a drink that really relied on.
Did they do that thing where they cut the sugar and filled it with sweeteners?
It's just this anodyne. It was a better world where kids were just allowed to drink pure chemical badness, and this namby-pamby nanny state where you're not allowed to drink pure E-numbers and sugar is ruined on Bongo for everybody, and therefore ruined embargoes. Right. The other thing that we feel that we pop into the news section is correspondence from people what listen to show. So we flagged this up last week, and we had a tweet from Aaron, basically sort of asking about a shopping list of players. What are we looking for this summer? What do we feel we need? I don't think necessarily it needs to be, like Mike Smith, who's got one goal in 10 games for Cheltenham Town, is available for very little money, kind of thing. That I don't know how much that will mean to anybody, but we can be specific where we feel that the need is there. But I think for me, it's more what are the top priorities that we need to, what are we on the lookout for? What do we desperately need? Surprising to nobody at all, will be my top of my list will be a goalkeeper.
On my list is a goalkeeper. I do want to say though, I did try to go ahead and try and do a bit of amateur kind of scouting.
Oh, good stuff.
I went through a list of players who probably in the championship who are probably out of contracts, thinking that was kind of a similar world of what we were looking at.
Yeah.
It's very bereft of a lot of players that I'm really convinced about or think would be a good
we could get a dream team back together of Joe Bennett at left back and
I saw Joe Bennett and actually wondered if that was probably one of the more palatable options of players who are kind of entering out of contract.
He's been very good for Cardiff, hasn't he, by and large? I think he's always had injury problems all his career.
He was pretty passable for us, though, wasn't he, to be fair?
I can't remember him playing that much, to be honest. But I think he's got a very good left foot. I've been impressed with a lot of his, you know, a lot of times watching him for Cardiff, I've been quite impressed with deliveries he's able to provide. I'm trying to see how often he actually did play for us, but yeah, that's another option. Sorry, so you've sort of sifted through some.
The only one I really thought of, and it's kind of a bit mixed and a bit patchy, because I kind of wonder about where the person is in their career. But in terms of a player who seems a decent age, kind of a decent pedigree, and also in recent recollection played very well against us, who might be kind of available and might be someone who, depending on where he's feeling within, where he's in the realm at his current club, could be potentially brought in. That's Jordan Archer at Middlesbrough.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Jordan Archer signed a short-term contract with Middlesbrough. Since I only think he made a few appearances, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on with the number one situation. Whether he was kind of signed as cover in the end of a kind of very middling season for Middlesbrough, you know, where they had a period where they were flirting I believe they kind of flirted at both ends of the table. It felt that way. Well, they kind of failed off. They failed from their view of kind of being a playoff team, right? So it's seen as being a transition from the dog shit they got under Jonathan Woodgate.
They sent out Dejan Stojanovic on loan, and then I think Jordan Archer came in as a sort of short-term replacement. So I guess maybe they were doing some deck chair shuffling, saving some money by getting a big earner out, and then Archer was able to step into the breach for them. But certainly, yeah, seems to be a very decent goalkeeper. Good age for a goalkeeper. He's 28. That would not be a bad shout at all.
And a decent pedigree and a lot of time with Millwall. I'm not entirely sure what his case was with Millwall, but I think for a club in our position, I think it'd be a decent acquisition. I think it's, if not him, a player of that ilk that we definitely need. That is the first thing on our shopping list. I think it's very identified for a lot of people that we definitely need a number one goalkeeper to take us forward. I'm not even going to entertain the notion of Kieran Westwood sticking around any longer.
No, I think he would be on it would be a fraction of his wages, wouldn't it? It would be I mean, we're probably talking like more than a quarter, or less than a quarter of his current packet, probably. You'd be happy for him to stay around on. Yeah, just not worth thinking about.
But again, it's again looking at that mentality of, you know, I felt we had that with Kieran Westwood previously. Was like, you know, how long, you know, definitely knowing that like he was in a place. It's fine to look at signings and think they're a stopgap signing for, I don't know, 3-4 years before they kind of move on. Like, it's, you know, it's fine to think of signings as stopgaps in different lengths of time. But just the fact that after a certain length of time, stopgap is a bit harsh for something of a length of that time. But right now, if we were to give anything to Kieran Westwood, it would be another year deal on vastly reduced terms.
As you say, I don't even think it's worth
thinking and persevering about, which I think is the same for like a lot of these Sheffield Wednesday players. One thing I want to kind of add on to what we'll do with the player ratings before we kind of talk about players we feel we need to sign is, should we do a retain? Should we even bother thinking about retain? I think we should have a brief comment about that at the end of each player rating, who's the players are out of contract.
Okay, yeah.
But I mean, goalkeeper, yep, we need centre backs. We need those players to we need enough numbers to match whatever our mentality is. I'm curious if we're going to go ahead with a free centre back. Like, how often do you think the 3-5-2 was defined by the season? Which is probably something else to get into. Like, how much do you think that's kind of defined by like the wrong personnel at the back, and how much of it is actually to look at a tactical thing? Because it felt like for a lot of time we kind of felt that we need to go three centre backs because two centre backs isn't working because they're not good, because the defence isn't good enough. We need numbers at the back.
Yeah, I think that was the defining feature. Really, was that we couldn't play with just two at the back. Because I vaguely remember when Moore came in, the talk being that he was a 4-4-2 guy. And I think he tried playing a game or two early doors of 4-4-2. And it did not
Or
work.
a kind of 4-3-1-2 type thing. Wasn't that the situation? It's
yeah,
kind of
something like that. Yeah. But he tried
less of a
to
winger, but different personnel kind of in the middle of the park, and then kind of pushing someone in that kind of number 10 in the hole kind of role.
That's right, yeah. And it was abysmal, basically.
We don't have the personnel. I mean, that's been a real difficulty with Wednesday's kind of transfer dealings in a whole. Like, how are you signing players to kind of match in with the philosophy of what the club wants to play, which there isn't any long-term kind of philosophy. So post Gary Monk, it's, as we'll get into, it's a real disaster of chopping and changing with different people, and different people coming to the club saying in various ways, either saying or not saying or showing us that Sheffield Wednesday doesn't have what they have in the squad to do what they need to do. Like Pulis was very clear about that. But then it just kind of seemed very adamant. Exactly. It seemed very adamant and very clear to Gary Monk. I don't know if we ever saw the Gary Monk vision. It felt like we gave him a lot of time, a lot of resources in comparison with the managers not doing so well. But I don't know. We'll never know, you know?
No, and we don't know. Even Carlos now, I mean, he seems to be more loose-lipped the further he gets from his time at Wednesday. And he says now that second season, he was getting people, he was getting offered people that were fourth, fifth, maybe even not on his list at all. So quite what hand the manager has in the players that end up at the club is a bit of an unknown. Before you even get into having a long-term vision and sticking by a manager and kind of building something that's a bit more sustainable. But we couldn't have been more... Well, I suppose it's interesting because Monk, I think, came in with a reputation of a certain type of football. I don't know how often we saw that. Maybe that was a personnel thing. Maybe it was a bit of false advertising. Tony Pulis is the most dyed-in-the-wool, last of a generation hoofball merchant, the most direct of direct football. There's only really Burnley play that way in the Premier League. There's very few teams play it in the Championship. I'm not saying it's bad or good, but it's an old-fashioned way of playing football, and we went for that for 10 games, but didn't give him a chance to sign one player. And then Moore seems to be a much more expansive, get the ball down, play it from the back. That is completely knee-jerk difference. Monk was quite a pass it out from the back, but I think maybe didn't have the strength of personality or the strength of will to force us to play that way. I think it ended up being direct more often than not, just bad direct. Then it was so poor by the end of his stay that we were almost ready for some, at least being good at being direct. That was what we could potentially see from Pulis if you're trying to be positive. And then we've swung completely the other way with Moore. And as you say, how do you build a squad? How do you pick players to fit all these different looks?
Huge problems there. So I mean, we will need to do a lot of transfer business. In whenever we can finally get the Umbongo lifted or carry on with the Umbongo. I don't quite know how that's gonna kind of pan out. But I think for me a key focus has to be the spine of this team. Like I don't know. I think if we get the spine right, I think the other stuff will kind of eventually follow. So for me, number one is a huge priority. A decent goalkeeper. We look at getting the personnel in place for a defense that's going to be decent enough at this level, but grow eventually. And then I want to kind of get some new midfield options. So I think for me, that kind of spine is there. That's what we need to focus on a lot. How about you, Rich? What do you think? I mean, outside of agreeing with me with the goalkeeper, what positions do you think are particularly problematic?
Well, it's an easier thing to say, where do you think we're well covered? And I don't know if there's anywhere. We don't. Let's assume players who are currently contracted will stay. I think just as a kind of we've got to have something to build a base from, and actually being under an embargo probably makes it less likely that players will move out, because the deals have to be more structured and sort of rigid in a way. So let's assume we still have Windass and Patterson. I do think that's the makings of a fairly decent front two in League One.
Yep.
There's no backup to them. So either we need a youngster or two to step up, or we need to bring somebody in there. Midfield, we've got Hunt.
Who's out of contract? Yeah, Hunt's out of contract.
Okay, so we've got Barry Bannon, the midfielder. Is he the only midfielder we've got?
Oh, well, I guess another bit of news. Hutchinson's triggered a 1-year contract extension. Right,
okay. So, I mean, in terms of players who are here beyond this summer, barring a re-up or whatever, we have Burner, Palmer, Patterson, Luongo, Iorfa, Dunkley, Windass, Wildsmith, Adedoyan, Deli Bashiru, Connor Grant, Cameron Dawson. That's it, according to Transfermarkt. So what do we have? We've got a good right back. We've got a decent left-sided centre-back. I think probably with Che Dunkley and Iorfa. Maybe actually we've got a defence, a right-sided defence and a centre of defence. We don't have any left-backs at all. Liam Palmer can only play one of those positions. So maybe I don't know where Galvin is in terms of I believe he's been offered another year, or we've triggered a year for Galvin. So maybe Galvin's our left back. Maybe. Goalkeeping wise, we do actually have two goalkeepers. Neither of them would I be very excited to see play, but I do worry we'll be in the position where we kind of have to go with them, looking at all the things that need to be done. So I'm just trying to, what does that look like as a team? So we've kind of got Patterson and Windass up top. We've got Luongo for one game when he's fit, Deli Bashiru and Bannon in a midfield. So we need a couple of a decent number of players there, 2 or 3 probably. I guess Connor Grant's a midfielder, so maybe he's in the offing, in and around at this point in time. So yeah, I think obviously so left back is needed, a winger or 2 or 3 maybe wingers, a backup striker, another centre back, and a backup right back. But if we could keep Uragide on somehow, he would provide good cover for the back few. Is there anybody? I mean, do we expect anybody in that group to step up and be? I'd like to see Deli Bashiru given some time.
Me too.
That would be a hopeful thing to come out of all this.
I think it's the best time and the best opportunity for him, and I think it's personally, I think that'd be a beneficial situation to all parties. Because I mean, he's come in and it's not worked out for him for a number of reasons, and I'm sure he's very disappointed. But this is a good time to refill the enthusiasm tank and go again in the league below. And I would like to think he plays more games than he doesn't next season.
Do we have a sort of return? I know Iorfa's he's come back to running now, hasn't he? So are we expecting him to be fit for the start of next season?
I think so. I think he's been in and around there in terms of fitness now. So unless anything unbeknownst happens, then he should be fit for next season to get going.
A centre-back pairing of, or him playing right back, potentially Liam Palmer left back, with Dunkley and Burner as the 2 centre-backs. It's not a bad back four for League One.
It's not terrible, no. But
we obviously have nothing beyond that. But
I'm not
still,
chomping at the bits of thinking that there are first options based off this season.
No, I know.
Again, we're playing with that weird alchemy of like, we dunk them into the lower nether regions, and somehow they come out molten gold superstars.
Well, I sort of in discussions in the week, I sort of did it with Burner, didn't I? That he'll probably be all right a division below, but he really looks like a busted flush at the moment. So there's no given that that's going to happen. I have no worries about Palmer. I think Patterson and Windass will both be too good for that division most of the time if they get to play in their right positions.
Mm-hmm.
Bannon is obviously going to look a step above because he frequently looks a step above in the Championship. And I think if Iorfa and Luongo manage to stay fit, they're both fantastic options in whatever position they end up playing in. So those are the little glimmers, but there's a lot to do. And we were sort of in this position last season and we didn't really do a lot of the signings that we needed to do, which I'm worried about. I'm worried we won't do enough business. Because right now sorry, go on.
That was exactly the same thing we had last summer, and we didn't.
I know.
We didn't do enough business.
Because right now you could literally sign a player for any position and it would be a welcome addition. There's so little to play with. There's maybe an 11 if you're inventive and everybody's fit, and about half these people are never fit. It's a really tough starting point. I hope somebody if you're a positive person, glass half full, this is a tremendous opportunity to build the squad that you need. So if you're Darren Moore, you've got a certain way you want to play. Surely you've got the opportunity now to pick some of the, to pick players that you want, you need, and play the way that you'd like to play. It is an opportunity because it's so wide open. I just wondered if there's any Doncaster Rovers players that he might be interested in.
Donny, who were in the playoff spots and then just fell off massively
when he left. Because he was so good. There's nobody jumping out at me, to be honest, looking at their list. Yeah. John Bostock, we could reignite that old flame.
Why not? Why not a second bite of the Bostock cherry?
Omar Bogle.
Oh, we can do the chant.
Omar Bogle.
Good stuff. Anyway, should we call it a day on that discussion?
I think so.
We've got a lot of stuff to get into, Rich.
Basically, in answer of the question, who's on the shopping list, we will take whatever you've got. At the bottom of the bargain bucket, going to seed, we will have it. We need numbers first, then we can think about quality.
Rich and I are going to do a who's on first sketch, where it's just no one on first.
There is, I think, in terms of the positive side of things, just to kind of wrap things up, I think there are some decent players who are out of contract. It's maybe not a terrible time. I think the fact that this is a difficult moment for all of the footballing world probably puts us in quite a nice position as a team that has sort of run our squad down to the bare bones, because I think there will be players available to fill those gaps, and they're going to probably be some fairly decent options. If you look at Championship players who are out of contract this summer, there are some pretty decent players around, and maybe that's always the case. But even if you completely look away from the top of the tree, I know we've been linked with Ashley Fletcher, Britta Sombalonga's another one, Jeju, who looked very good against us for Bristol City, has been released. Troy Deeney, Andre Ayew, and I'm not expecting us to get any of these players, but even looking a next level down, there's some James Chester, Andre Wisdom. There's some decent players who are available this summer when we're having a poke around. So hopefully we can make more good choices than bad, and we can pick up some really good bargains on that free transfer market. Nyland is another option goalkeeping wise. I think he's a Swedish international. His contract's up at Norwich this summer. Okay, so announcement, big noise, explosions. Who are you wearing? Luke, who are you wearing?
Rich, I'm wearing some black jeans from the fine people at Old Navy, and also wearing a New York Owls Sheffield Wednesday Adams t-shirts. Shout out to the Owls Americas. So, yeah, that's what I'm wearing.
Fantastic.
What are you wearing, Rich?
I'm wearing some loungewear bottoms with Darth Vader on them from M&S, probably too many years ago, and a Doughboys t-shirt.
Excellent.
Doughboys is the best podcast in this God's green earth. So representing. There we go. So first things first, we're looking at best moments and worst moments for the season. Should we do worst moments first and then sort of have the slight peak of best moments, or do we want to lead ourselves into a period of mourning and wallowing, because we will then go through the other bits of the reviewing the season? Maybe start with the high and then get ourselves into the black stuff.
I think there's so many instances we can kind of pinpoint that we talked pre-pod about putting this in, and I just very quickly thought of two moments. So there are probably some worse moments, and I don't think there's a better moment. The best moment for me of this season, Rich, is Callum Patterson's goal against Cardiff.
Yeah.
Just every little step of that is it is goal of the season all over it. It's a staggeringly good goal. Like, people would be creaming about that in the Premier League. It's Champions League quality of a goal.
Yeah, it's just every bit of it is gorgeous and perfectly played out. It's tremendous. I think probably those two games against Cardiff were as good as it got this season, because we beat them 2-0 the first game of the season and started to believe maybe something special could happen. And then obviously beating them 5-0 was the start of us feeling like maybe we could save our backside somehow. The two sort of gleaming bits of hope in the season are those games against Cardiff. And Jordan Rhodes scored in both of them. The prolific Jordan Rhodes.
Exactly.
I also enjoyed, just speaking about the first Cardiff game, the Rochdale Cup game was another thing where it just felt like, I just remember how it feels like ridiculously naive now, but I remember feeling very, very hopeful and excited about what was in offing. I thought Deli Bashiru looked so good in that game, and really it was almost like a what if kind of moment, because I think Hunt looked good, and you're just looking at it and going, we've got an okay first team, and then underneath that we've got this. I've said Hunt looked good. He didn't play in that game at all. No, he did play. Sorry, he did play. Kieran Brennan played as well. So there was Liam Shaw. So I think that was the one where they both played centre back, wasn't it? Brennan and Shaw played centre back, and I thought they looked so assured next to each other. Pardon the pun. And it just felt like we had so much going for us. It's unbelievable now, to all these months later when everything went wrong. But at that time, I remember being even a bit emotional when we scored that second goal, just feeling like maybe something's in the air here.
There was a lot to be said about that game, and just the feeling of having some real quality running through the squad, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, like, Kachunga had a really good game. It felt like a real day for the second string. And it felt like, even against lower league opposition, it felt like a strong performance. It felt like one to kind of get excited about, and felt like one that showed that, there's a lot of strength and depth.
Yeah, it did. It did feel that way. And I know Rochdale have got relegated from League One, but still, it was a decent level of competition. I thought they Rochdale turned up. They gave us a good go. Gave it a good go against us, but we stood up to that. And yeah, it was the quality that shone through. We battled them where we needed to, and then it was our better quality, and a lot of that provided by that second string and those players that we didn't see enough of through the season, really, for one reason or another. But that was a high point. It was very early on, but it was a high point. Any other good moments before we get to the worst bits?
No, I'm sure there's some more kind of things. I think you've kind of covered it, really. Just kind of, I like the fact you holistically looked at those games. I talked about a moment just being a goal, but I mean, you can't look at about a game in total. No, I think that kind of covers it for the positives of this year.
Yeah. So obviously the worst moment was getting relegated, and maybe everything from knowing that Cardiff equalised onwards is sort of collectively the worst moment of the season. That kind of 12, 13 minutes of knowing that if we'd done our bit, we could have stayed up, and we were unable to. And then the sort of the final nail of relegation was the worst of the worst. But outside of that, were there other things that stood out for you?
I had an interesting thought about one of the worst moments. I think there's so many candidates for really terrible moments. Let me kind of go through some of the other nominees in this category before I give the award for the worst moment of the season. The Izzy Brown corner is a big one. The second half capitulation against Luton.
Yeah.
The Barry Bannon missed penalty.
There's
a lot of things to think about. There's a think about, well, maybe there's more holistic, and we can think about Tony Pulis is being hired.
That felt like a down moment for not just for this season, just for my time as a Sheffield Wednesday fan. I think the most embarrassed I've been being a Sheffield Wednesday fan, maybe, or one of those times, having to try and muster up some vague enthusiasm for that man at the helm, having pretty much universally despised him forever. That was rough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy, it only lasted 10 days. There's so much sort of psychological bartering you had to do with ourselves to kind of make this acceptable in some way. And then it was all for nothing. It was just such a stupid blip in an awful season.
I was thinking, this may be slightly kind of off the wall and slightly kind of weird. You know what feels like a really worst moment of the season for so many senses, and the fact that it's so kind of cartoonish and so outlandish? The drone at Rotherham.
Oh, yes. That was... Well, I mean, I think for me that Ladapo goal is probably my one, but I do, yeah, I know what you mean. That kind of it was so weird. It's been such an odd year with the lack of fans and the weird things that fans have tried to do to either inspire their teams or slack them off, despite the fact they're not allowed to be in the same, postcode area as them. And yeah, the drone. Oh, I've forgotten about the drone.
Because it just seemed to be, well, I really enjoy chatting to you every week, Rich, which is probably why we're still doing this podcast, despite the fact that Sheffield Wednesday are complete dog shit. It just feels like a lobotomy of any passion I have for Sheffield Wednesday is taken from me every time I watch this football team from afar with no connection. And there's so many slim good moments this season. I think that's the thing that is disappointing looking back at these players. I think we imagined it would be tough going into the season. It was tough, but I imagined more moments of quality, just a few from everybody. and there's so little to kind of get from that. There's so little output from the machine of looking at these players. But one of the things I thought you said, Rich, which was I thought so apt and so good, which I thought was really great for, you know, your reading of the game and how you see things. Basically, you said that this is something that is going to disrupt us massively.
Yeah.
And we were starting okay. And then we came back out and then we shipped 3 goals in just the worst fashion. Aidan Flint gets injured, which I think is huge. I think it's thanks to the fact that they go indoors. I think that disruption of the game, I think that injures him. I think that changes the outlook of Sheffield Wednesday's defense. I think that causes disruption. I think that's a big disruption that has a big knock-on effect. I think it's a big butterfly effect, butterfly drone effect, or whatever you want to say.
You know, that's a big thing, you know, actually, that the getting cold, the sitting down and things like that, because there's a lot of wooey sports science that's been added to the game in recent years. But it is shocking how like medieval a lot of what happens in and around a football team, fitness wise, is really, it's Dark Ages stuff. And keeping warm is one of those things, because I know I've heard several people say, and in particular Scram, who was on the Owls Talk, who was I believe a physio for a number of years at Watford. Apologies if I've kind of made a stab there and it's wrong, but you know, he talks about the time. Actually, half time would be much better if it was just 10 minutes. 15 minutes is a bit too long to kind of break away from the activity. It does make it more likely that people will get injured. It makes it more of an you need to like warm up again a second time. With it being 15 minutes, it would be much better if it was 10 or 5 or 10, just as a quick like sit down and then rally. And also apparently it's very rare that the halftime team talks take 15 minutes. There's a lot of sort of silence towards the end, just sort of people looking around, twiddling their thumbs and, you know, eating their jelly babies and things like that. But that's it. I hadn't really thought about that with Flint in particular. That is almost you're 100% right. He will have got cold, and then the fact he comes out again and has to, and then start, you know, with the first sprint or whatever. That's what's done him. Because I'm amazed footballers watching halftime is shocking. If you consider like this, the same sort of halftime stuff happens at Hillsborough as happens at the City of Manchester Stadium and Old Trafford and wherever else. They just come around and kick a ball about and chat to each other. And when you think that these are some of the most expensive human beings on earth, it's mad that they're not going through a proper warm-up routine to look after them. It's really crazy. But yeah, great. That's a great moment. Great pick, Luke, I've got to say. Anything else on the list, or is the drone takes it?
The drone takes it for me. It's just so awful. It's so outlandish. I think it has a big moment in a lot of things that go on in this. Losing away at Wickham was pretty poor.
I was going to say that losing away at Wickham and in general just that run. I think we've been speaking about that early kind of enthusiasm. So we beat Cardiff, we beat Rochdale. We're feeling quite good about things. We drew with Watford, which again felt like a good result, given that Watford were expected to be one of the top teams. Then we lost to Bristol City, drew with Queen's Park Rangers, beat Birmingham. But I think we were all looking to, well, we'll win those 3 games. We'll win Luton, Rotherham, and Wickham, and that will be us. We'll be out of our points deduction, and we'll be ready to roll and whatever else. And to not just lose to Wickham, but for that to be the 4th loss in a row, with all 3 of the previous games being winnable, almost must win by the end. that was hugely disappointing. It was a hugely disappointing end to a hugely disappointing run. Yes, that was a pretty sore moment.
Monk having pally chat with Akin Fenwa.
Oh yeah,
and that wasn't fun. Didn't enjoy that one. Gonna say on the more
Former
pithy end of the
Swansea
scale.
boys.
Former Swansea boys.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can do that conversation behind closed doors, so I don't have to get upset about it.
What was the game where Aldebacho did the high five? There's been a lot of that.
That was good, wasn't it? That was against Forest, wasn't it?
It was Forest, wasn't it? Yeah.
That was the second goal for Forest, wasn't it?
Yeah, grab
when
him.
we were away. Yeah.
I think it wasn't quite what it looked like, but
didn't look good though, did it?
Didn't look good. It did not look good. He's end of his contract as well. The big boy, the beast. Would you take him for a season in League One?
No.
Fair enough. Are we ready to move on to grades for the players?
Let's do this.
It's the end of school report for the players. We're going to go on the sort of Japanese grade scale as seen in computer games, where S is the top grade and A is the next one down. And we're doing that in part because I'd be very surprised if anybody gets an S grade. So it's going to be quite funny to specifically set out that there is an S grade and then not hand out any. So what we're going to do is go through the squad by their squad number. And as you say, Luke, we'll pick out the ones that have their contracts are up. We'll then say, are they worth trying to keep or not as well?
Mm-hmm.
So number one with a bullet is Kieran Westwood.
Kieran Westwood. I've gone for a C for Kieran Westwood. I think it's interesting to start off with Kieran Westwood and look at Kieran Westwood straight off the bat. It's interesting to say that not every rating is relative. So I think that a C for Westwood is not quite a C for everyone else. C feels fair to me because it's damning for his legacy and his time with the club. And yet having a number one goalkeeper with a C rating is really a great marker for just how bad this season's been. I think we lead from the back here, and the fact that there's no spine speaks volumes, and yet the best goalkeeper at this club as it stands. I wish I was wrong, but I feel there is enough hot yoga, there's not enough 7Cs and Sonatogen, and certainly not enough physios to have him near the level that we want and we expect of him. Disappointing.
Yeah. I think C is an absolute bang-on rating for him. As you say, it says everything because he's far and away the best goalkeeper at the club, but even that was nowhere near good enough, nowhere near acceptable. And for a guy that has been player of the season several times during his tenure at Wednesday, it's a bit of an awful cloud to be leaving under. But no question for me. No contract. Cheerio. Thank you for your time, Kieran. And some of those years were tremendous, but I never ever want to see you in a Wednesday shirt again. Thank you. Liam Palmer, little Liam.
Liam Palmer. I've gone for a B+. This was an interesting one because I remember thinking about a little bit of a spoiler here. My ratings, no one gets anything in the A range.
Okay, yeah.
I'm really going to blow your mind here, Rich. No one's going to gain the S range either.
What? I thought Jack Marriott was a shoo-in.
Oh, well, he'll have his own special letter as we come to it. There's another little spoiler. Liam Palmer, always understated, always professional. I think he had such a weird start to this season, and I remember at the time being a little bit mildly miffed. I was weirdly miffed about what happened to Liam Palmer at the beginning of the season. So he suffered from his own success because he was picked early doors for Scotland, and that really interrupted the start of his Sheffield Wednesday season.
Yes.
And that really made him never get any chance in a very inconsistent Wednesday back four, back five. Like, I think near the beginning, because we have a good start to the season, I think we went ahead with the options that we had and we kind of settled with them.
Yeah.
But knowing how interchangeable this defense has been, I think it's a real shame that we haven't seen more of Liam Palmer.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think he's been our best defender at the club this season.
I'm just
finding it hard, Rich, to recall a time where I think he's let us down this season. Please correct me.
There's nothing standing out to me. I think he was caught sort of maybe marking the wrong player or jogging back against Derby for their equaliser, the first equaliser. But I'm picking hairs, I'm splitting hairs. Sorry, not. I'm picking hairs, Luke, is what I'm doing. I'm saying that hair. He's become the picture of consistency and reliability, and everywhere across that back four. I think right back is best for him because he can deliver a ball now, which is nice. He's got good instincts in terms of tracking into the box. His finishing leaves a lot to be desired, unfortunately. Really panics still. It used to be that he panicked when he got to the halfway line. He now panics in the box, so that's progress.
That's some vast progress.
It's vast progress. So maybe he could have a Kieran Lee-esque sort of moment where it all just clicks into place in terms of being able to shoot and score, finding some zen in those panicked moments, because Kieran Lee was really bad at shooting for a long time and then suddenly became probably the guy you'd want in those situations. So, maybe there's hope for Liam. He's still got a couple of good years left, I think.
Well, that seemed to be the story with Liam Palmer. It seemed to be like he was on, in that wingback berth, and that was that kind of late interchange in the last few weeks of putting Patterson in that role, because he was getting into those positions.
Yeah.
But not doing so great with them. But it's still, again, it seems to be a Sheffield Wednesday dilemma of like, you have other players who could probably do it in that position, but they can't get into that position.
Yeah.
So it says a lot for the ability to get into that position in the first place. Even if you're seeing, Liam Palmer, the Worksop Express fluff his lines in those opportunities.
Yeah. And getting up and down is no mean feat. Doing that all game is an achievement in and of itself. But yeah, I'm happy that Liam's still at the club. I would be happy seeing him turn up at any bit of that back four next season. If it ends up being left back, if it ends up being part of a three at centre back, if it ends up being right back, more's the better. But yeah, I think. So did you say B-? Was that your grade?
No, a B+.
B+, sorry. Yeah, B+, I think is
because I think he's a consistent really 7 out of 10 player. Oh no, that'd be horrendously harsh.
Yeah.
Also provided, as I said, the luscious assist for a Wednesday player this season, with the sweeping outside curl of his foot for Patson's exquisite volley.
It was great.
It was amazing.
Number 4 is Joost van Aken.
Joost van Aken. JVA, we barely knew you. A defender out of contract. A defender out the door.
Already got a new team, hasn't he, I think?
Pretty much. JVA managed to secure himself with a hefty C, which probably means that an underwhelming injury and blunder-ridden affair of a season gets him an award of his best season with the football club.
Yes, yeah.
And, kind of, he had a bit of a berth in the left-back role, which seemed to do well for him.
I didn't mind him there.
I didn't mind him there at all. That was the work of Pulis. Yeah. That was Pulis coming in and saying we don't really have a left back at the club.
Yeah. I think people have said they'd like to see him at left back almost since he started. He doesn't have the physical presence of a centre back. He's too easily moved around. But he has a cannon of a left foot, so he can play passes forward. He can cross. He probably has been a left back all his life. It just took Tony Pulis's constant refrain of fullbacks are just centre backs that stand further wide. It just took his that mindset to for us all to see it. But what grading wise, Yost? Well, where are we?
Oh, I said he gets a C.
C.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny to look back and now, the end of Joost van Aken's Sheffield Wednesday career. I'd genuinely love to know what list he was on. I'd love to know how that deal came apart. You know, I'd love to know the dealings of a catastrophic waste of money since the last waste of money. And he's top of a long fictional list of top centre backs that we needed to sign. And yet nowhere near as good as Venancio and Sasso, who we bolted at signing for legitimate transfer fees and would piss all over JVA from the height of a kickstool. Or an IKEA shelving unit.
Reading between the lines, he is the person that Carlos is talking about when he says, I got the guy that was like not even on my list.
Completely.
Because we had this huge gap in the squad with Leuven's kind of gone or on his way out, and everybody knew what we needed. We needed a commanding centre back, and what we got was JVA. And commanding, he ain't. He's some things. He's but commanding is not even. You know, the Football Manager out of 20, if you're talking about commanding, I don't think that's one of the things that they grade people on. But you're looking at like 3 or 4 out of 20. It's a really low score for him. It's one of his worst attributes, and exactly not what Tom Lees needs next to him. Tom Lees needs a stately as a galleon, big lad next to him, so that he can run around and Tom Lees around his coattails. And JVA was the worst possible partner we could have bought because he is more of a flutterby waif than Tom Lees, and you cannot have 2 of those. It just does not work. And as you say, this was his best season. Still pretty bad. Still didn't play enough. Still didn't play well enough when he played. So yeah, I think C is generous, but I'm happy to go along with you there. Number 5. Why on earth was he number 5? Callum Patterson.
Patterson. Let me just get my
C-Pats. Pato.
C-Pats. Callum Patterson's a walking B-.
Walking B-.
I wonder if when his Wednesday career is over, we'll go, we never knew his true position.
C-Pats, we hardly knew you, would we say?
I think so. Disastrous when signed for a targetman striker to replace Stephen Fletcher.
Yes.
But a decent-ish utility player who maybe seen best in the middle of the pack in some strange number 10 type character.
I'm happy for him to be involved in our team next season, regardless of where he pitches up, really. I think he'll do an okay job. He's almost like a Liam Palmer in the way that he will do a passable job anywhere. I don't know where his home really is, but I think Pulis kind of maybe called it that it's a kind of goal-scoring midfielder is probably where he's going to work out best.
And
I love his attitude.
Yep.
I'm really pleased to have him as part of the club. He was not the signing that we needed at the time. Again,
no.
But he got a return of 9 goals from his 45 appearances.
He got 9 goals
across the season. Yeah.
Wow. So was he joint top goal scorer for Sheffield Wednesday?
Windass got 10.
Windass got 10.
I wonder if they're counting. Are they counting?
They must be counting cup games.
Yeah, they're counting cup games. Yeah, it's the whole season. But I'm just wondering. I'm just double checking that they're not counting like friendlies. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah, Windass got 9 in the league. Okay.
9 in the league, and he got
Mhm.
got 1 in the cup. I think it's worth looking at the overall picture, although we didn't have huge cup runs. In part because that's what's on offer on the site where we've got the squad listing. So, but that I mean, either way, it's not a bad return for a guy that certainly isn't centre forward and hasn't played every game at centre forward. But it's the low end of what you would want from the guy who came in as your replacement for Stephen Fletcher.
That's such a problem though, because it's like that's the great tragedy of Callum Patterson. That I like him a lot, and I think he's been a decent signing, but it's just not what we were after, and that's the problem. Like it's like if we needed, I would have exchanged Callum Patterson if we had limited funds, which I'm guessing we did, to do something else better, But I'm happy that he's here. But it is like an option. It's like and I mean it would be interesting to say if we didn't have that really strong presence. It's difficult to replace a player like the caliber of Stephen Fletcher. But I mean we needed to do the best that we could with that, and I don't think we did. I'm still happy that he's here, but he's not that player. He's the extra player. And there's a lot to like about Callum Patterson. His application, his charm, his kind of gritty, non-league, non-academy smarts, his big old wanging throw-ins. There's a lot to like, but it's just, I feel like I'm being harsh with a B- because there's a lot I like about Callum Patterson, but it's just not.
Well, the thing is, by all accounts, we paid 2 million or so for Patterson, and we were in for Kiefer Moore, who went for $1 million.
I thought Patterson was more like 500k. Yeah, I don't think we spent anywhere near 2 million on Patterson. No, I really don't think we spent that much.
Okay, we never know. I'm sure I remember the talk being of 2 million when he signed, but we never know because it's all undisclosed anyway. But for a similar sort of fee, Kiefer Moore went to Cardiff and got them 20 goals in less appearances. And Kiefer Moore is exactly what we wanted, is exactly what we needed. He is a mobile man with a touch of pace, a lot of strength and good heading ability.
But when we're in this situation to buy a realistic transfer player, a realistic player for a bit more of an extra fee, then it never happens.
No.
We balk at such a things,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's the problem. So we could have, I don't know if we were ever really fully in for Kiefer Moore, and I'm sure Kiefer Moore probably might have been another player who would have turned by Wednesday's position at that time. All thanks to the German.
I'm seeing 500. So I don't know where I got the 2 million from, but
no, if we spent 2 million, then that would be ridiculous. But I mean, Cardiff got Kiefer Moore in the end.
The Cardiff got Kiefer Moore. I think basically we got Patterson because they got Kiefer Moore. We were kind of like,
right.
We got their, they got the better one in, and we got the hand-me-down Callum Patterson. Who we might grow into, and by growing into, that means dropping down to the league below.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, what is the best brand for my balls?
Manscaped, of course. Hold up, is that a nose pube?
Good thing our partners at Manscaped are here to ensure you're taking care of your manhood and your nose hairs with the new performance package. I don't know about you, Rich, but I had a work colleague who I thought he was great. I thought he was a great guy, a bit of an elderly gentleman, but every time I talked to him, what I wish I could have done is brought some kind of grooming scissors and just reached over and took a big chop off of his lengthy ear bush that he had there. And I don't know about you, but I'm a man who, sometimes likes to pick my nose. And sometimes sometimes pull out some hairs from my nose, and I'm thinking there's got to be a better way than this of just really painfully extricating nose hairs.
It's a literally eye-watering experience, isn't it?
It really is.
Well, it's great that Manscaped has this performance package. It's the ultimate in men's hygiene. So it includes in this new package, the weed whacker for your ear and nose hair trimming. It's waterproof. It uses a 9,000 RPM motor-powered 360 degrees rotary dual blade system.
Wowzers. And I mean, that stuff that it has that fantastic, much like the ball trimming package, which is the lawnmower, that the nose and hair trimmer, it's got that proprietary Skinscape technology, which means you're going to prevent those nick snags and tugs in those delicate holes. And, you know, all of these areas are very delicate holes, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely. 79% of partners polled admitted that long nose hair is a major turnoff. So you've got to deal with this, and why not use the best tools for the job?
That's right. The bundle that we mentioned includes a Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer, the best trim on the market for your balls, butt, and body. And it's time to turn that gooch into Gucci with Manscaped.
And let's not forget their famous liquid formulations, the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and the Crop Reviver Ball Toner, to maximize your ball hygiene routine.
Yeah, that's right. You can get the performance package now to receive 2 free gifts, and that's the Manscaped boxes and the Shed Travel Bag, which is a lovely bag, I must say. Also, you receive a replaceable braid every 3 months to keep your weed whacking and lawn mowing time clean and enjoyable.
The performance package is the best value that Manscaped has to offer. It's 20% off and free shipping if you use the code GravyBalls at manscaped.com. And you can thank Manscaped for making your holes look sexy.
That's right, folks. You can get 20% off and free shipping with the code GravyBalls at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code GravyBalls. What are you waiting for? Go whack your weeds and make sure your balls look great during the process.
Okay, so we have a weird thing at number 6 because the first number 6 this season was Aidan Flint. So we should give him his due. Just 4 appearances. It
4 appearances. It does feel like more. I think from what I saw and what I felt from Aidan Flint coming in without any great preseason and doing that situation, I think I'm going to be generous to give him a B-. How do you feel about that, Rich?
Yes, I think that's fair because we did get absolutely conked in one of the games, didn't we? So he wasn't going to be an absolute cure-all for our issues, but it was another one of these things tinged with, a bit like Jordan Rhodes, where it was also tinged with a feeling of, imagine if we'd got him the first time we'd been linked to him and had his harvest years at our disposal, it would have been quite a thing. Yeah, sad what happened with that, really. A very, very good player, obviously. And we just didn't get enough of him, didn't get enough juice from that berry. And a pivotal decision in the season was not renewing his loan when we had the chance to. That's a big what-if moment. Once again, we're at those sliding doors.
Exactly. And I mean, but there felt a little bit of like, unfortunately, it felt like when we talked about this football team and the squad and the makeup of the players that we had at centre back, there's a lot to be said for defensive pairings at centre back. And we're kind of hoping that like it felt like the nature and the story of Tom Lees is, you know, he's a decent enough player, but, you know, he's much better when he's with someone who can understand him and who can work with him well, which was kind of a story of Lees and Leuven's, really. And so we kind of hope for a bit of alchemy of a player coming in who could kind of improve some of the other players around him. Because I don't think naturally that any of the defenders we have are complete shit. But then the formation and having those people together are kind of, you know, it doesn't work. with these characters together.
I think centre back is still somewhere that, by and large, pretty traditional kind of archetypes remain. And your classic partnership is stopper and cover. You have the big guy that goes to the header, and if that fails, you've got the quick guy who can mop up. That's a standard centre-back partnership. It's like the big guy, little guy up front thing, but they both tend to be big guys because we're talking centre-back. And Tom Lees has always been pretty good at being the mop-up guy when paired with a leader. So his best times at the club, I think Leuven's wasn't a natural. He wasn't a behemoth. He wasn't a massive physical presence, but he just had this calmness about him. He'd seen everything. He'd done everything, and that soothed Tom Lees and let Tom Lees play his best football. The most traditional partnership he was in, I think Flint was one of those, and I'm now blanking. Hector was a great partner for Tom Lees. The times where that fell down was because Hector was then also a ball-playing sort of guy, and sometimes his flamboyance got us in some issues. But by and large, that was a great partnership because Hector could go and fight the man, and Tom Lees could sweep up any of the difficulties around it. It's always been obvious what Tom Lees needs. We just haven't given it to him. Ironically, Dunkley could have been that guy. It's just I have no idea how good. We'll talk about him obviously in time.
Exactly.
I have no idea how good he is because we just haven't seen enough. Next up is the other number 6. It's Sammy Hutchinson.
It's Sammy Hutchinson. Sam Hutchinson. I still don't know how to think about all this. And yet the funny thing is so much of this is not about Sam Hutchinson. Yeah. So much of it's about Sam Hutchinson's reputation. He's like the Taylor Swift of Sheffield Wednesday. He's like coming out with he talks a lot about, I don't know, so much of the mentality is a bit like, oh, people think I'm a bitch and a snake, like Taylor Swift. And it's like, I don't want to keep talking about this. I don't want to keep talking about what it is. And it's just such a tragedy. I don't know, so much of this is we're led to believe the narrative, and we've gone ahead with the narrative to say that if a couple of managers, at least 2 managers, have said that the problem at the football club is certain characters like Kieran Westwood and Sam Hutchinson, then I don't have any insight or any reason to disbelieve those people. Yeah. But the decision to make to go with the manager and to release him and then bring him back is just madness. And it was just so weird and so bizarre. And I was watching a video there's a football YouTuber called Benjamin Bloom, who's quite intelligent, quite a nice chat, seems to be quite turned on to things. He does kind of like a football where he talks about Championship, Premier League, all that other stuff. And he's aging backwards as well. Exactly. And he was talking about, did a video recap of Sheffield Wednesday's relegation season. And it's kind of weirdly comforting to see people from the outside who don't support Sheffield Wednesday. He supports Ipswich. Right. Take a look at things and kind of look. And he's basically had here's my kind of coda, my system for things that relegate clubs. And it's kind of quality relegates lack of quality relegates clubs. There's a few other things, but one of the big things is chaos relegates clubs. And it just is a fucking mini shitstorm around Sam Hutchinson. And it's just bananas. And the disappointing thing is to say that that's all I can kind of view is his time back at Sheffield Wednesday for. Well, don't you think his time previously. Sorry, what are you going to say, Rich? Sorry. Well, I was just going to say, it's thinking of that, the eye of the storm sort of thing, the calm in the eye of the storm has almost been his appearances. And what we've had is he's done all right. He's done okay. Yeah. He's not done brilliantly. He's not done terribly.
for all the fuss and all the noise, when you actually boil it down to, he played 22 games for us. He probably had 5 stinkers and 5 good ones, and everything else was, it doesn't amount to very much.
No, but it's oddly positive. I've gone with a C+.
Yeah.
His rating, but I maybe that's slightly damning. Maybe he's more of a C. No, sorry, maybe more a B-.
But we simply couldn't have coped without his presence. That's
I know, and that's the difficult thing. And it's just some of my. So here's the thing: everything around, here's my notes. Everything surrounding the situation was weird and bizarre. I'm curious if he's here for the entire season. Then maybe he makes a touch more of a difference for Wednesday to stay up. Maybe that's the odd difference. Like, it's weird to look back and say about Sam Hutchinson. I hated him in the middle of the park. I thought he'd just looked completely past it and gone. But again, it just seems, like you said, the calm in the eye of the storm seems a calming presence at the back. And everything that seems to me from him, he seems to be a bit more of a character you kind of want in this situation. I don't know. There's a lot to be said for the PR situation of Sam Hutchinson.
Yeah.
Hutchinson, a man who has known Paphos deeply through first his long sojourn to play for Paphos and then the tragedy of playing in a very dire Sheffield Wednesday side. There's a sadness of seeing someone trading off his Wednesday legacy or currency with the fans in a series of very weak and slow-footed jaunts around the middle of the park. And yet I think about his extension and experiences at centre-back with some words from excellent co-host Richard Miller in that I don't hate it. I think he's one of the strongest centre-backs, which feels really damning.
Yeah.
But I mean, now we're looking at, like, I don't know why we got to the position of playing him every game. I'm glad he played. I'd be happy if he played most of the games, I think. But, like, again, selecting him in centre mid, even above Pelopessi and even above FDB and other options.
Yeah.
Even sometimes above Shaw. I didn't like that at all. But I'm weirdly thinking now, however he got his 1-year contract extension, I don't hate it. And I think I appreciate that in the rebuild, that there's so much to do. There might be a value in having him as a bit of an elder statesman as long as he's playing in and around the centre-back roles.
Well, the move to Paphos, mate, was bizarre anyway, because he's not, last summer he was 30 years old. He'd played 40-odd games of championship football. Like, he wasn't at that out to pasture. He could have played for another championship team. He could have played for a League One team. It was a decision. I don't know. It's just so... There's just so much weirdness around the situation. As you say, no matter who you believe, why is there even a question? So many players, there's never a question of... Nobody's asking whether Adam Reach was destroying the dressing room. Like most players just get their head down and do their job or don't do it. But with Hutchinson, we've had continual questions about character and influence and whatever else. To then kind of, I don't know, it was a bizarre decision to go and play in the Greek whatever league. I don't know. So strange. I think he can make valuable contributions to our season in League One next year. I think he's probably a fairly natural choice for a captain. I think
there is a bigger tragedy to say that, like, I think he had a good time with Sheffield Wednesday. If he'd gone and if he would have gone, the tragedy is we never replaced him. Or we never replaced him any other player. Not like him specifically, just any other player in any of the roles.
Well, that's why he, you sort of ask the question, why did he end up playing so often? Well, big part of that is we needed to sign probably 2 centre-backs. We only signed 1, and the one that we signed was injured until November. And funnily enough, when you break your freaking leg, you don't come back nice and easy. You have loads of injuries around it. And that is one of the weird... Whoever was in charge of that decision wants shooting. It was a terrible, terrible choice. You could tell from the outset that it was a terrible choice. and the fact that he was our only addition at centre back until Flint came in, and then Flint broke in 4 games. He hadn't played a game for 6 months. Baffling. So thank goodness for Sam Hutchinson. Goodness knows who would have been playing centre back for us this last run.
I know.
But we still got relegated, so it wasn't good enough. And he did give away goals.
But less goals than some of the other players that we can talk about.
Maybe. That's what's so strange. There's so much noise and confusion. It's like Pete Doherty when it was like the peak of the Libertines, and Creative were having to pay security guards to keep him and Carl Barrett from each other's throats and things like that. Carl Barrett.
Very nice.
Up in the brackets. Oh, how niche can we get? But like the hype, the first album was big. How huge is the second album going to be? Do you know what? Nobody cares about whether Pete Doherty is what he's like now, because is he making music? Did anybody care? And that's almost the thing with Sam Hutchins. Is like there's all this fuss and all this noise and all this talk. Is he what sort of an influence is he? Is he a bad influence? Is he the best influence? Is he the good guy? Is he the bad guy? Like, do you know, at the end of the day, it's like, do you know what? He's a guy who's seen his 30th year go by. He's okay in defence. He's not good enough in midfield, and that's about it. That's what it amounts to. Something in the C range is perfectly adequate. It's not damning, because being average was good for this squad, but it just for all the noise and stuff, it's like, was it worth it? That second Libertines album has, I think, 2 or 3 tracks where somebody plays mouth trumpet, and that's what Sam Hutchinson's last 6 months has been like. Oh, okay.
What was the name of the Libertines' second album? The Libertines.
I think it was, yeah. Which is always disappointing.
Yeah.
But I love the thought of Hutch as Wednesday's Tay-Tay. Next up, the one and only number 7, Kadeem Harris.
Oh, this is a brilliant. I could not have dreamt a better segue, Rich. So. Samstown, Second Coming, Supposed Former Infatuation Junkie. These are some examples of the sophomore slump, but these albums had moments of quality, which is a lot more than Kadeem Harris has had this season. B-, just rubbish. No end products ever this season in such a horrendously poor season. We never got to see him perfect the Harris. It's just a long time watching him for no results. It's a lot of blue balls. Astonishingly poor for second season syndrome. Just felt like a waste of space and wages season, following a pretty decent first season. He missed Fletcher as much as we did. He looks done at this level. I'm staggered who signs him at this level.
Yes. All of that. Yes. Oh, what a disappointing return from Kadeem Harris.
Can't stand him now. And he is, what a waster. He did piss it up the wall, didn't he?
I mean, I'm staggered he played 41 games and didn't get 1 goal.
Did he? He must have got an assist.
I think he got an assist or 2 along the way. But
not as much as we hoped. I think we were really hoping that he would have got like a couple of goals and like 6-7 assists.
4 assists, apparently.
4 assists. I'm staggered it's that much.
Well, some of those might be generous. There's assists and there's assists. Where do they think he got his assists? An assist in the losing game against Brentford.
He gave me an assist.
Apparently got the assist against Blackburn, assist against Wickham, assist against Bournemouth. I cannot remember any of those assists, but that's what they're saying. That's what the numbers don't lie, Luke.
Really?
No, if I was a drama student, I'd be clicking at your. I can't put it any better, Luke. Yas Queen is all I can say really to that.
Was my review yeet?
Yes, it was Yeats. It was dope. It was all those things.
All those things.
Oh, we're in quite a divisive little corner here. So, number 8 is Joey Pelopessi.
I've gone for a C for Joey Pelopessi. The pest dispenser.
The pest dispenser.
You know, he's not the Hive single because he's not the main offender.
Pessy Hound? Do you like that one?
Do I like what?
Pessy Hound?
Pessy Hound. I love it. It's a shame that we'll hopefully never get to see him in a Sheffield Wednesday shirt again. I can never call him that. But maybe I don't know, maybe our friends at Al's Americas can use that in their dispatches from Air Division Soccer, where he goes back to, so he can go look there. So I said he's not a big offender, and by that, Rich, I mean he steals Crunch bars sporadically from the small business corner shop. In this economy? Times he has not offended my sight with a poor and needless yellow card has been good, but still the element of looking at the importance of his club and its role of changing and owning the game in the midfield is greatly disappointing for looking at him as a prime option. I'll never fully know how good a player he is, and Jos Luke's only signer can saunter off into the abyss. Hopefully he can go on a Sequest PSV with a rock tied around his leg and be as boring as that show was under the sea.
So you're not... It's a no for you in terms of giving him another year in League One.
Oh yeah, have we covered anyone who needs to be? Well, I think we've kind of maybe told our story. I mean,
Westwood. We know Hutch has got another year. Harris is out of contract, isn't he? But we are waving him goodbye pretty heartily.
We're going na 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 na. Hey, fuck off, Harris. He's a bit like, do you remember when we went to go see Wednesday winning League One away at Huddersfield? And do you remember me jumping up and down, giving the rods to Huddersfield fans? Go drink some fucking John Smiths, you terriers. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a wage low enough that Westwood would accept for it to keep us on for another year.
Yeah.
It's not even worth
unless he gifted it to us for being a nuisance.
That would be nice.
I'm donating my year to the Sheffield Wednesday Foundation.
If we could have it would have been nice if what we could have done is we could have just split his last 2-year contract over 6 years. Because that would probably be it'd make us think, oh, it's not that bad a wage.
Yeah.
And then we could probably just make him a coach or something, or I don't know, under 23 goalkeeping coach or something near the end of it. Van Aken's off, as we said. No, Thrice no to Harris. Hutchinson's got his contract extension.
He played enough. He got enough minutes.
But to bring us back to what we're talking about now, the pest hound. Pest dispenser. It's a no from me. What do you think?
It would be the same basis as I wasn't upset particularly about giving him the year last year. And when we talked about that, I was very much filled with the caveat of as long as he's not first choice.
As long as not first choice, yeah. As long as we sign other players to play that position.
I think he can play a role. He can be there, but I don't. A big problem with this season is that Joe Pelopessi has played 43 times. He's been in every single squad through necessity. That shouldn't have been the case. It should not be the case, but it was because of poor planning, poor signings, whatever else. So on the same basis, I wouldn't be upset about him getting another year if there's an option and things like that, provided, I'm sure he's not on a huge wedge. I think he's a good, honest pro. I'm sure he would be. I think we'd see a bit more of his kind of range of skills a league down. I'm not going to say he's going to be massively better, But he does occasionally pick out a pass. He does occasionally get forward and have a bad shot. We'd probably see a bit more of that, I think, in League One. So I wouldn't mind on that basis, but I do not want to see him come in and play 40 odd games. That's not what you want. I also wouldn't be too sad if this is the end for Pelle Percy. That's the flip side of it. Jack Marriott.
H for a horse on heroin. A smacked up Ewan McGregor as a horse would be better. That angled shot on his debut was a long time ago, and he then served some prime junk or skag in the form of deeply life-ruining Brown. The worst signing in the history of bad signings. I want Enoch Schwabney back.
Give me my Schwabney back.
just want to go up to the director's box and be like, fucking hell, Chansiri, give me Schwabney back.
Give us Steve Howard at 38, fat as a barrel, unable to move.
Give us Warren Feeney.
Awful. I hate him. I hate him. Every moment he spent wearing a Sheffield Wednesday shirt, aside from that angled shot, was awful. Deeply angering to watch. I don't know whether he had some ability and has lost it, is so low on confidence that he can't remember the last time he played a good game. And frankly, I don't care what the reason for it is. I just wish I'd never had to see it in a Sheffield Wednesday shirt. Just incredible, like new depths of awful. H is generous. There's a whole alphabet to get through. He just a waste of atoms and molecules. Really, it could be doing almost anything else than being Jack Marriott. It's a real waste of everybody's time involved on a sort of atomic level.
He looks like Orlando Bloom playing the role of a bricklayer who's picked up for a lower league football team, but there's just nothing that happens in the film, and it's really bad. It's really boring.
And all of the shots of football are a body double that's very clearly somebody else.
Yeah.
They're about a foot taller than him.
It's kind of a bit like people are watching it being like, oh, does he rise through the ranks and trust in his abilities? And it's like, no, he's just shit. No, it's just a depressing film with no narrative.
It's just terrible. All of his teammates hate him and the fans boo everything that he does. The end. It's like the Green Mile, but the Brown Mile. It's just a terrible stretch of time that makes everybody sad.
That's amazing. That's amazing. The Brown Mile.
Yeah. Number 10, Barry Bannon.
I've gone for a B+ for Ray Bannon. I feel like we've seen a bit more of Bannon at the better end of his spectrum and what he can do for us. I think we've been unlucky with what he has done for us to him not made more assists. You know, I remember at least 3 games, I think, where he's done some really good deliveries and we just haven't had anyone on the end of it. Or we've done a really good corner and then, I don't know, Julian Burner has just casually knocked it over the bar. You know, I feel like the team has let him down on a few occasions.
I think definitely that's definitely fair. Particularly there was a run of games where it just felt like Bannon was playing on an outstanding level and just so out of sync with those around him. And it was really sad to watch, really, in a way.
He's probably given some of the best moments of the season, really. I don't know. It's weird. And also, I mean, I don't know. You could maybe downgrade me to a B for this. I don't know. I like Bannon a lot, you know?
I think we've got to, I mean, even in the worst of this, there's got to be some vague positives we can pick out of it. And I think Bannon, for me, far and away, there's just you can never question his heart. You can never
No.
question that he cares. You can never question. He never goes hiding. You know, the biggest criticism of him is, oh, he drops further back in the field. But part of that, I mean, he's doing that so that he can get the ball more. Like it's there's something very charming about like young people in love. I think that's why there's lots of coming of age films, because almost the answer to everything in those coming of age films is, I just need to get me in front of this person for longer, and then they'll fall for me because I'm obviously great. And there's kind of like, there's a confidence in that most people lose as they get along in life. And that's the thing with Barry Bannon. It's like, do you know how how I can improve this game, how I can make the team better, is more of me. More of me. I want to, I want the ball. I can make things happen. They're in trouble with the ball. I can take the ball and get it out of trouble. That is having watched so many cowards wear this Sheffield Wednesday shirt. I will take Barry Bannon every day over so many people that have worn this shirt through the years.
Yeah.
Giles Coke and Darren Potter, and I mean, we've had all those Bostock and Saws and like the run, all those sort of players, these kids that got picked up for £15 million by Palace or Tottenham. Give me Bannon every day. I'd take 11 Bannons. We wouldn't go far wrong with 11 Bannons. We'd probably get beat up. We'd probably let in a lot of corners. But it would be a real sieve for set pieces. But still.
I think he's been, he is disappointed for a lot of reasons. He has affinity with his club.
Yeah.
I think it shows that he's someone who just has a heart that cares very big. And I think it's a reminder we need more quality around him, because I think that means that we see more of Bannon, but we lighten some of the burden on Bannon. I think he's been really run into the ground. I think he's really been a talisman for the Sheffield Wednesday quarantine season. I think weirdly, I feel like he's embodied us as the fans. Like, we're running to the ground with what's going on with fixtures, the season, no uplift from signings. There's no fans to celebrate with. I just say, poor Baz. I hope that it isn't the last we see of him for us. But,
no. That's a question.
It's a really, really sad ending, if it is.
I think what happened. I think what you're speaking about, him sort of feeling a little bit burned out. I think he reacted to the Cardiff game like everybody else should have. It was a shot in the arm. Let's get ourselves safe. And I think he then had a run of 4 or 5, maybe 6 games where he was doing, every corner was whipped in and perfect. And he's like developed this dribbling thing, like this, like it's just like he came on, he'd been good enough all season and then he's gone up a level, but nobody else matched him. Everybody else was like, well, we got that win, so we can have a month off now before it matters. And by the time everybody else started caring a bit more, he'd almost like used up all of his juice. I think it was like a disparity of where the effort was going and when the effort was put in. Tragic, really. Tragic is maybe a good segue for another very, very divisive figure amongst the fan base, Adam Reach.
B-. Patchy Adams.
Nice.
Just never been entirely the best position for him in this formation and mentality. I think we do have to recognize that he's had some great moments though for this season. Just not enough for us. I don't know. It's a bit like so much of a season is a weird lack of accountability. Like it's like someone falls over and 500 people are like looking around questioning who's going to help them up. Who's going to ring the ambulance? Who's going to see if they're all right? Who's going to perform CPR on them? Depending on how bad this falling over is, for the sake of my analogy.
It's a bad falling over.
But it's just, there's so much of this where like there's so little quality from people. Everyone's a bit like, I thought you were going to score the goals.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know if, again, it's a similar thing to Bannon, to Reach, to a bit that like we've had the season where he was just banging in Wilders every week, you know, and we kind of came to expect that. I think for someone of his standing and someone of his quality and his wage and his transfer fee, he should have provided more quality than I think he did. But I think he did near the end. I think he had a bit of a nice little run of form, a little purple patch for Patchy Adams.
I think so, yeah. To be fair to Reach, how often his best season, he was right wing, inside out, right wing, whatever you call it, inverted wing or whatever.
Yeah.
Left-footed guy on the right wing, cutting in, scoring goals. Did that for our most successful season in living memory.
He was all right, wasn't
He was all right. He then went really left wing. He went full circle and he went Bernie. Remember, we've talked about his Bernie Sanders infatuation.
Yes.
AO Reach rather than AOC. He.
Terrible joke we do about him. It's brilliant. I love it. So bad.
But he's kind of so. Jos played him in midfield, which never felt right. It never worked. He ended up playing left wing back a lot of times, a lot more often than not. Position. Some of that works, but it means he's got his first thing has to be defending, and then it's providing. And I don't know why you would choose to do that with your. He's got pretty much as much quality as Bannon, pretty much.
Yeah.
In terms of delivery and vision, you'd think what you want to do is get him in positions to affect the game more often. But I think being a wing back, the back part of that affects things, and he's not a natural defender. I think he gets loads more criticism than he deserves for his tackling. I think he does. If people actually watched rather than having their eyes painted on, he does make tackles. He does put himself in there to get hurt at times. But it's not natural to him. It's not what he wants to be doing. He's able to get up and down that left flank, and that's about as much. That seems to be why he gets given the job. But it hurts his game. We've just not seen Adam Reach play the position that you'd want to see Adam Reach play, basically ever. That inside out right wing position is his best position. I don't think he played there at all this season. But still came up with 3 assists, I think, and a couple of them were absolute pearlers. 5 goals in the league. For our team, who didn't score many, was right up there. I mean, if we had a defender or 2 that pitched in, I don't know. It's just not his best year, not a glowing report.
Yeah.
But if everybody performed to the level of Adam Reach, we probably actually wouldn't be in a bad spot, despite the fact he's pilloried and hated.
There's a lot of thin margins, aren't there?
Yeah.
There's a lot of thin margins throughout the entirety of the Sheffield Wednesday season.
And he's another one whose contract's up.
Yep. I said Leeds better than Harris, but that's not hard, is it?
Yeah. I'd have him in a heartbeat. I don't think there's any prospect of that happening. He will easily get a job in the club.
No. I said thanks, Richinho, and best of luck in your next adventure.
Yeah.
There's been some good moments.
Some just beautiful moments. I mean, some of the
just
best
a shame
goals.
We can never, again, it's that great tragedy of selling players at the right time.
Yeah.
We could have shifted him for 10 million at some point.
I'm sure.
It just never, I don't know if anyone ever entertained it. I don't know if it was ever a realistic thing.
Who knows? Next up, number 13, unlucky for some, Julian Burner.
This is the beginning of me running out of notes. I came back from
The enthusiasm tank.
a work trip from Edmonton last night, and I pretty much just ate some food, listened to our predictions episode to kind of circle back on that one. And yeah, I kind of ran out of time. I'm going to be honest here. So, but I do have ratings for Julian Burner. It's a C-.
Yeah. The big question mark with him is...
What is that big question mark? I thought it was a number of question marks.
Well, for me, it's about he looks physically done. And is he physically done, or is it a confidence thing? Like, is he putting himself in worse situations because he's lost confidence? Is he not making decisions and acting in a forthright manner that you need to at centre-back? He's dallying, he's thinking twice. And that makes him look worse. I don't know. I suspect with the right partner, Burner might look okay again next season. But this season he's been calamity Jules. He has been... I'm nervous watching him. I'm waiting for him to make a mistake. And by and large, he's going to do it a couple of times for you. Some of the things he has done have been just utterly baffling. And more often than not, we've been badly punished for them. He's also made huge mistakes and weird decisions that haven't been punished. And I can't remember the game now, but there was a couple of weeks ago where he was like trying to claim for a head injury when really he should have got sent off, but it still ended up hurting the team and punishing us. He's one of those people that's got another year, and I kind of wish he didn't.
Yeah, I know. I was really looking forward to. I was really disappointed to find out in the preparation for this podcast that he wasn't on the list of players to go. Like, he has another year in him. Well, on his contract, I don't think he has another year in his.
yeah.
3 goals. 3 goals this season.
Is not to be sniffed at.
It is not, no.
Scored in 10% of the games he's played in.
Wowzers.
It's a pretty good return. He did have a good goal scoring record before he came to us. I remember looking at it, and I think he got on average he's had 8 goals a season before he came to Wednesday. I expect he will get goals in League One if he plays a decent number of games. It's pretty scoring down there is a bit easier. Goalkeeping is pretty patchy at best.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Penny, number 14.
I'm gonna go for a C- with Matt Penny. Just a weird mix between I don't know how many opportunities you were given, Matt, to perform, but I also want to say I don't know how many. I don't know what you did to earn said opportunities and further opportunities. He looked quite good against Walsall, didn't it? That was really... God, that feels a long time ago.
It does.
I don't know. I never feel like I know with Matt Penny how good he is anymore.
No.
Like, I just don't know. Like, that's... I don't know what else to say about him as a player. Like, what else can we say in this review? Because he's barely played. He's barely got a sniff of an opportunity. And then when he has played, I don't really remember outside of Walsall being any great shakes.
He's got that. He's in that sort of hinterland thing of. I don't know if hinterland is what the word I want to use, but he's got that weird limbo land, I guess. More. His best traits seem to be attacking traits, but when he's been played as left midfield or left wing, he doesn't look good enough at it. And his defending is not really good enough for a left back at championship level.
Well, that's the problem because we're typically going with a wing back system, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'd love to know. Like, it always seems a thing. Like, it's like, oh, wing backs are a thing. There are wing backs out there. you know, it
On the wings.
seems so weird in English football because we typically think of a very dated 4-4-2 mentality that like who is, but then it's like, well, you know, football has advanced, but I never know who there is in the world who excels within this position.
Some people are. I think like Carl. There are players that are tremendous. I think Carl Walker is unbelievably good as a right wing back.
Right, but then that's a little bit like I don't know how much this is of like this almost feels a level, especially for now a football club that's entering the third tier of English football and previously designs of grandeur and ideas above our stations. This feels a bit like we're kids playing under 10 football and getting ideas of, you know, of trying to imitate things that we do in FIFA, which is funny to mention because that's my dad's grumpy old man routine is these kids play FIFA trying to do things that they've learned on FIFA. But it's like, again, the point I'm trying to say is like we don't have the players to do these things.
I mean, well,
it's always a stretch for these players in their positions. All of them. All of our wingers, all of our wings and defend options. Who's probably the most comfortable? Palmer?
Yeah. But I think really the wing back definition is you're full back, but you also have the attacking output of a winger.
Right.
Right? Like at a base level, that's what it means. So Palmer was a good fullback, but didn't have much in the other. I think he's become a very good wing back because he now offers a threat in the opposing half.
But isn't that also another damning thing to kind of bring into this equation is you're asking like a lot of fitness from players who typically don't have a lot of fitness.
You have to be
you've got to be a prime athlete, and also you've got to do that like 46 times a season.
Yeah.
And in a very impacted, very chock-a-block schedule.
Penny
which is chock-a-block before we get fucking COVID outbreaks.
Yeah. Penny has the stamina of a teenager, and he's 20. I think he's just not made the grade, unfortunately. No, but like it's the same.
No, I love the idea that you're making that sound like you're having to hear two of your neighbors have sex. Like which did happen to me. Which did happen to me, learners, and I can tell you that my young neighbor, you know, did have the stamina of a teenager because he basically was a teenager. Oh my life! What's going on? What's going on, Rich?
Well, in this sense, stamina of a teenager, I am meaning that you get tired after about half or an hour of football. You do not have the...
You did as well.
We could jag for hours.
Yeah.
But like, how many times have we seen this from Shaw? It's like he's forgot there's a second half. But Penny's 3 years older. Like Penny should be getting his kind of, you know, his man strength and his man, you know, like this should be. He's ramping up to the peak of his athletic life, and he doesn't seem to have an hour in him. He doesn't quite have enough puff for an hour, which is. It's damning. He will. The chances are he will never be fit enough, I think, to play the role of wing back. And he's not good enough at defending to be a left back. He's not good enough at attacking to be a winger. I think he's just not very good, unfortunately. Although it looks like there's pieces there that should be good, and people love to say he'll only get better about young players. That is simply not true. He probably is about a League Two, National League type player, I think, and that's probably where he'll head. I wouldn't mind if he doesn't cost too much. I wouldn't mind giving him a go in League One because I think there's some ability there, but it needs to all come together very quickly for him because this is.
But the problem is, like, he can probably. We're now getting to the point where he has to compete with. I don't know how many more youngsters we want to keep around to see if they can come good. When
Just in terms of,
I think we're just getting to a situation of just getting a massive squad of youngsters. And I think we just need to mainly focus on players who can do it every week.
He's older than Green. He's a year older
than Andre Green. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. That's really damning.
Yeah. He's not. It's the same as the goalkeeper thing. We talk about these two goalkeepers like they're children.
Naive young lads, yeah.
They're naive young lads. They're 25 years old. Like, this is it. There's no promising youngster anymore. There's nobody that was terrible for 25 years of their life and then suddenly got good for the last... Like, you are what you are.
Well, I mean, that happens in adult careers, but it doesn't happen in an adult career like football. No, true. Yeah.
An unforgiving athletic pursuit like football, you've got it or you don't. And if you haven't got it by 23, 24, you're probably never going to have it. There's the odd person, Jamie Vardy, Ian Wright, but the fact we can name both of those sort of tells you how rare it is. There's not many.
Exactly. Rare shooting stars, yes. And,
you know, the comparison to Vardy, he's nowhere near vascular enough to be Vardy. Right.
So release.
Yeah, I think so.
I think we need to release, yeah. Catch and release.
15 is Tom Lees.
Oh, I don't know. I wrote something down. I'm looking at it now and I'm like, why did you say that, Luke? You were probably tired last night. You were tired, weren't you, Luke? Had a long old week in Edmonton. Came back. I had a chippy tea.
Oh, living the dream.
It was good. I got really tired. I'm going to go for a C for Tom Lees. I think initially put C+, and I've redacted that.
Redacted it.
Much in the way of Richard Miller's Julian Burner redaction. Turns out Julian Burner touched kids, allegedly. So we're reevaluating. Parody.
Do you know what? I think C is right. I think my gut reaction was that it feels a bit harsh. The truth is, in a relegation season, and we didn't just get relegated, we finished bottom. Very few players were good enough. That's the fact of the matter. Good teams don't get relegated. Good teams don't finish bottom of the table. And however, so many times where people are like, well, Tom Lees has stood up and done X, Y, and Z. And yes, there were good games. There were good bits and pieces. Since Leuven's, he's just never been the same. There's been moments with certain partners, but Tom Lees has been thrust into a role that he is too big for him and he's not good enough for. And he's failed, unfortunately. I'm sure he's a nice chap and he's honest as the day is long. He's a good, hard-working pro. But we have asked him to be the leader of our defence. We even made him captain. He's not made of that material. He's not that guy.
You think a lot about, I'm thinking a lot now about Arctic Monkeys' song Fluorescent Adolescent. With the lyrics, a lot about that song. With the lyrics, you're falling about, you took a left off last laugh lane.
And do you think that's Tom Lees? Looks better
in his fishnets. I think that's the Tom. Yeah, he used to get his fishnets. Now he gets his nightdress. Yeah.
So he's obviously contract up.
Yeah. It's such an opportunity for someone like him to show his character. This is the thing. Like, he's a man who we said was captain, but he's never been captain material. And it feels like in some senses, like he acts the captain.
I think that's why he was given the captaincy. He's a lead by example sort of guy.
But it's a stock photo of a child wearing a superhero costume and like giving it the guns. That's Tom Lees.
It's there's a Jerry Seinfeld bit, an old Jerry Seinfeld bit about Superman costumes. The Halloween costume of Superman says on the side that it doesn't give you any ability to fly. And he really likes the idea of the child who is stupid enough to think that it would, but clever enough to check the box first. It's a great bit. But
That's hilarious. That's so funny.
there's a little bit of that, isn't there, with Tom Lees? It's like, yeah, I think he almost probably convinced himself he could fly with his cape on. And in this case, the cape is his captain's armband. But it just didn't work, and it crumbled, and it just... the thought that it could work made the fall even worse, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd like to be a team's football psychologist and sit down with Tom Lees and be like, next game, Tom, pretend you aren't John Terry.
Yes, yeah.
How about that? How about you? I don't know. It was such a time to show his character, and it's just, he crumbled massively. And
a constant theme with him, just does not get enough goal return for a centre-back.
Yeah.
You need your lead centre-back getting you a handful of goals a season. He is a 1 goal a season guy, maybe 2 if on a good year. It's just not enough, unfortunately. Goals, just not enough goals all the way through this team.
Can we get a regen of Rob Jones in the summer window?
Oh, do you think he'd come back for a season?
Probably would.
League win it up.
Well, we could have just
played for like a tremendous amount of time after he finished with us, didn't he?
Yeah.
Dave Jones threw him out like so much old rubbish, and he like played for another like 4 years or something crazy.
I think we should have just had a season with. I feel that first Wednesday promotion season we should have played with. I think it would have been about the same if we'd just given the people who deserved a chance to be there from the promotion season. We ripped up the promotion team too quickly, in my opinion.
We did. We've got so many more players to do, Luke. I'm sorry. We can't.
No, this is a 2-episode one.
Whether there was any smoke or fire. Andre Green. He was in 16 squads. He played 12 times.
Green. C.
What did you make? C.
C.
CC.
CC. He had a few moments. I mean, we've never really seen him at any peak level of fitness. I think there's a bit more to come from Andre Green, and we're also going to be playing in a league below. It just depends how much that is. I mean, he could probably do. He could definitely. I don't think it's hard to do a bit more than what he did this year. Really, like the only kind of moments. I think there's kind of like a bright kind of debut appearance, a brightish debut appearance. And then I think the next thing beyond that is him winning a penalty.
Yeah, that was nice.
I think there was the awful moment where we did the same thing we did with every other player, that they have a good game and we think, can they do it again? And then they don't.
No, they don't bother turning up again.
Yeah. It feels a bit like, do you remember that Big Train sketch where Simon Pegg's like, he's got his young kind of 3-year-old son on a bicycle, and he keeps trying to put her on training wheels, and he keeps trying to launch him off, and just a number of things. How, like, one of them he sets on fire.
Oh, right.
Do you remember that? So he's like, see, the problem you did there is you set on fire. And it just feels like he's had like a really good first chance at that, and then the second one he's basically just that's basically what we've happened. We've launched him into a kind of mini Valhalla kid strike. No, I definitely think there's some stuff with some promise. I think everything is sounding good about his background. I'm wondering what it'd be like with a consistent run of games. I think potentially there's some promise on that. I don't think we can say that from this season. It's just a difficult club to come into. Who knows? Maybe he might be complete shit next year. But there were some moments. There were a couple of small moments amidst some stuff. And I mean, he was never someone we ever relied on heavily. It seemed like someone with some upside when we signed him.
Yeah.
You know, we should have made more signings. That's the thing. He's a Callum Patterson type signing. You know, it's good on paper to fill out the squad with, but it's not the immediate first option for what we need.
No, that's It's a good call. It's a good call. I'm hopeful. I hope we get to see some good stuff from him next season. He's obviously a bit of a he's a good size. I think League One won't shock him in terms of the physicality, which is good. You can get kind of beaten up a bit in League One if you're not. That's my slight worry for Bannon is he just becomes a bit too much of a target, and teams can just sort of physically run and roughshod over him. But yeah, fingers crossed. We had so much fun thinking about the players and giving them all ratings, like we were imagining we were sort of school teachers and handing out grades, that we're going to split it up into 2 episodes. So that was the first chunk. We will get to the second half of the squad next week. And we'll also we've got a couple of other fun things to look at next week as well. So that will round up our season review. It's been a season of a huge amount of content. So we needed more than 1 episode to tackle it all. Couldn't all squeeze in. So I'm going to say cheerio to you, Luke. Wish you a good week. And I'm going to do the same to folks listening. Thanks for sticking with us through this awful season. But hopefully the podcast has been a bit of a light addition to things.
I agree. Thank you, Rich. Have a good week, everyone. Bye-bye.